Hi, my name is Michaella Elad. I'm on the leadership team with the Council of Student Athletes. There are 12 propositions with the California ballot this year, and here's what they look like.
Proposition 14. Proposition 14 authorizes bonds continuing stem cell research. A yes vote on Proposition 14 means the state could sell $5.5 billion in general obligation bonds primarily for stem cell research and the development of new medical treatment in California. A no vote on Proposition 14 means that the state could not sell $5.5 billion in general obligation bonds and primarily for stem cell research and the development of new medical treatment in California.
Proposition 15. Proposition 15 increases funding sources for public schools, community colleges, and local government services by changing tax assessment of commercial and industrial properties. A yes to this vote means that property taxes on most commercial properties worth more than $3 million would go up in order to provide new funding to local government and schools. A no to this vote means that property taxes on commercial properties would stay the same. Local governments and schools would not get new funding.
Alright, so Proposition 16. Proposition 16 allows diversity as a factor in public employment, education, and contracting decisions. So a yes vote on this measure would mean that state and local entities could consider race, sex, color, ethnicity, and national origin in public education, public employment, and public contracting to the extent allowed under federal and state law. A no vote to this measure would mean the current ban on the consideration of race, sex, color, ethnicity, and national origin in public education, public employment, and public contracting would remain in effect.
Proposition 17. Proposition 17 restores the right to vote after completion of prison term. A yes to this vote means that people who are on state parole, who are U.S. citizens, who are residents of California, and are 18 years or older would be able to vote if they register. A no would mean that people who are on parole would continue to be unable to vote.
Proposition 18. Proposition 18 amends California Constitution to permit 17-year-olds to vote in primary and special elections if they will turn 18 by the next general election and be otherwise eligible to vote. A yes vote on Proposition 18 means eligible 17-year-olds who will be 18 years of age by the time of the next general election may vote in the primary election and special elections preceding the general election. A no vote on this measure means no one younger than 18 years of age may vote in any election.
Proposition 19. So Proposition 19 changes certain property tax rules. So a yes vote to this would mean all homeowners who are over 55 would be eligible for property tax savings when they move. Only inherited properties used as primary homes or farms would be eligible for property tax savings. So then a no vote to this would mean some homeowners who are over 55 years old would continue to be eligible for property tax savings when they move. All inherited properties would continue to be eligible for property tax savings. Okay, so Proposition 20. Proposition 20, it restricts parole for certain offenses currently considered to be nonviolent. Authorizes felony sentences for certain offenses currently treated only as misdemeanors. So a yes vote to this would mean that people who commit certain theft-related crimes, like repeated shoplifting, they could receive increased penalties like longer jail time. Additional factors would be considered for the state's process for releasing certain inmates from prison early, and then law enforcement would still be required to collect DNA samples from adults convicted of certain misdemeanors. No vote to this would mean that penalties for people who commit certain misdemeanors, like repeated shoplifting, will not be increased. There would be no change to the state's process for releasing certain inmates from prison early. Law enforcement would continue to be required to collect DNA samples from adults only if they are arrested for a felony or required to register as sex offenders or arsonists. Alright, Proposition 21. Proposition 21 expands local government's authority to enact rent control on residential property. A yes vote to this would mean that state law would allow cities and counties to apply more rent control to more properties than under current law. And then a no vote to this would mean that state law would maintain current limits on rent control laws cities and counties can apply.
Proposition 22 exempts app-based transportation and delivery companies from providing employee benefits to certain drivers. A yes vote on Proposition 22 means app-based rideshare and delivery companies could hire new drivers as independent contractors. Drivers could decide when, where, and how much to work, but would not get standard benefits and protections that businesses provide their employees. A no vote on Proposition 22 means app-based rideshare and delivery companies would have to hire drivers and employees if the court says that a recent state law makes drivers employees. Drivers would have less choice when, where, and how much they could work, but they would get standard benefits and protections that business provide employees.
Proposition 23. Proposition 23 established state requirements for kidney dialysis clinics. Requires on-site medical professional. A yes to this vote means chronic dialysis clinics would be required to have a doctor on-site during all patient treatment hours. A no to this vote means chronic dialysis clinics would not be required to have a doctor on-site during all patient treatment hours.
Proposition 24. Proposition 24 amends consumer privacy laws. A yes vote to this would mean that existing consumer data privacy laws and rights would be expanded. Businesses required to meet privacy requirements would change. A new state agency and the state's Department of Justice would share responsibility for overseeing and enforcing state consumer privacy laws. And then a no vote to this would mean that businesses would continue to be required to follow existing consumer data privacy laws. Consumers would continue to have existing data privacy rights. The state's Department of Justice would continue to oversee and enforce these laws.
Proposition 25. Proposition 25 replaces cash bail with risk assessments for suspects awaiting trial. A yes to this vote means no one would pay bail to be released from jail before trial. Instead, people would either be released automatically or based on their assessed risk of committing another crime or not appearing in court if released. No one would be charged fees as a condition of release. A no on this vote means some people would continue to pay bail to be released from jail before trial. Other people could continue to be released without paying bail fees. Fees may continue to be charged as a condition of release.
Now that you've heard the yeses and nos of all these propositions, I hope that you can take this information with you to the polls. My name is Carlson from men's soccer, and I encourage you to go vote on the 3rd.
This is Michaella Elad on the women's basketball team, and I want to encourage you to go out and vote on November 3rd.